Welcome back, Slayers, to the weekly Slaying Loot Farms, where each week we go over the best reactors. And this week is pretty stacked. Simply put, reactor farming is getting a huge overhaul, in quote from the Dev Notes 14. We also want to address the issue of reactor farming to reduce the inconvenience of having to farm a new ultimate reactor every time you switch to a new weapon. We're introducing the reactor implant system. This system will allow you to implant the weapon optimization conditions of other ultimate reactors to your current ultimate reactor. An ultimate reactor can have up to 3 weapon optimization conditions. You can freely implant weapon optimization conditions based on your weapon settings. With this, you'll no longer have to farm a new reactor each time you switch your weapons, as you only need to implant a new weapon optimization condition into the reactor you're currently using. Hear more of my comments and thoughts on the future of the First Ascendant in this video here. Now, starting today with our external components. So, to kick us off for the week, Slayers, over in the Fallen Theater, we have our auxiliary power. The best mission will be the Vogus Occupied Building. Now, typically for your auxiliary power, go for HP support, crank out max HP where you can, get max HP on the substat, and then you can get MP recovery out of combat. Or if you want one for simple farming, you would go with something like Hyper Shard drop rate as well as module drop rate. Do make sure you prioritize the HP support. Pick up that extra HP where you can. Now, moving on to our memory. We have actually 2 options for you here. Now, this will depend on how progressed you are in the game. Always a Valby outpost, if you can take advantage of it, will be good. For this particular one, over in the Frozen Valley region in the fortress, typically you'd run one person with Sharen and then Valby and go from there. You'll unlock the boss and do your farming for the time limit. But we do have the command relay here as well, which is amazing for solo, but if you still need the material for the energy activator. As I always say, guys, you want to double your farming, so I'm going to recommend you guys to do the command relay so you're having excess resource for those energy activators. And potentially, when they start fleshing the game out more, and if you need that resource some more, you'll have an excess amount just saved up. Now, just to essentially show you how much we got from that, not too bad. Now, typically, HP support memory, like I always say, max HP wherever you can. It's the easiest way to do so. Now, we do opt for an MP recovery modifier here. You can then get either gold drop rate, firearm proficiency, or even go for more max HP in that substat there. All up to you. You can even have a defense with the MP recovery modifier. Really depends on where you want to take your build to. But generally, max HP, MP recovery, just those 2 lines will do you good. And then later down the road, further min max it as needed. I'm actually going to run you guys non-attribute to start today. Takes us to the grand square. We have non-attribute, and it's special rounds too, lo and behold. Tech. And, this one, the Kingston Surveillance Radar. This is going to run you for Kyle and Ajax. Farm this one. You're looking for, Secret Garden. If you don't get a good Secret Garden one, when those reactor changes go live, you can just put that particular mounting on there. Maybe you want to, use a different weapon for it. I would say typically for Kyle and Ajax, I think cooldown reduction would do you good. And then probably their non-attribute boost or a tech boost, whichever one's squeezing out the most. It would really depend on what you're going for. If you're going for Kyle's, bossing build, you would do damage to Colossus and the crit damage most likely, or the attribute boost. More non-attribute, but these would be more for like Gley, Jayber, and Valby. Even Luna in here as well. Now here, I'm going to leave it up to you guys as well and give you guys 3 of some of my favorite ones off this list. But like I said, depending on what you need, you may want to do a different mission so you can, knock off that as well. So in doing that, I would recommend the forward-based one first to you, which would be the Broadband Fleet Beacon mission. If you need those particles, you should do here for your reactor, as you'll also be farming the resource. That's my first top recommendation there. And that is running you non-attribute general on dimension. We'd also have non-attribute general on singular, which is here. There's also the Timberfall one, impacts on dimension. Once again, you could change the mounting. If you do want to do the Timberfall one, you have the Timberfall Power Facility, which is a pretty efficient mission as well for those reactor drops, so keep that in mind. We also have non-attribute on singular here over in the classified area. You do have the large nuclear reactor, which is kind of nice. Now, essentially here, you would go here, and once you stand on the objective, all the enemies will just run towards you. You do have to stay in that circle to do the objective, but they essentially just run at you. So depending on who you're using, you kind of AFK there a little bit and just let your character do the killing. Those are some of my recommendations there. Here's on Gley, go for things like cooldown, duration Colossus damage, or cooldown Colossus damage. For Valby, depending on your particular build, I will go with something like cooldown again as well. You do resource costs if you want to spam the abilities a bit more. Maybe you're doing a mobbing build with her. With the upcoming 400% to those infiltration operations, you may want to squeeze some more damage, so you may opt for a crit damage roll, or maybe one to boost the non-attribute. Ooh, Hailey Reactor, weak. Chill, high power, singular. Misty Woods, you will be running your Hazy Swamp mission, guys. Very, very efficient mission. Good reactor drop. Now, the reactor thing won't apply here as it's high power anyways, and you're singular. You're looking for Piercing Light being your best in slot. If you already have a kitted out Afterglow, go with the Afterglow instead. And as far as the substats go, you'll be looking for crit damage and damage to Colossus being best in slot on those reactor rolls. Now, regarding Viessa, we do have Fallen Arc, which is chill in tech, and it just so happens to be general rounds as well, but not too bad. Couple farms here, guys. Again, lock it in, a couple farms. You guys been keeping up with the series. We do have the Frozen Shipyard. I'll kind of go over it here again, but you're typically just going to do this initial portion until you have to drop down and do the objective. After then, just abort and restart. Rinse and repeat until you're satisfied with your reactor drops. I do then want to include that we also have one. It's on impact, but tech. Remember changing them, which we do have over at the mountaintop. You have Borderline of Truth, so if you still need those blue brains from this particular mission, you can kind of be knocking that out at the same time. Like I said, double your farming efficiency. You should always be looking to double your farming efficiency whenever you can. Just show you guys, in case you don't know how to efficiently do this one. It's not too bad of a mission, provided you manipulate it the right way. Now, regarding the reactor rolls, depending on what you're going for, so bossing, usually do the skill crit damage and damage to Colossus. It's usually good. And then as far as mobbing, I like to run cooldown on mine, and then maybe a tech boost as well when going for, those upcoming 400% infiltration operations. You just squeeze a little more damage in the mobbing portion on that reactor, either via attribute boost, or even then if you want to still do crit damage. Righty, now you would abort the mission, rinse and repeat. Woo! And guess what, guys? It is Freyna Reactor week yet again. Now it's going to run you to my personal favorite over in the Rockfall of Sterile Land, your anticipated ambush point mission. Funny enough, one of our first viral Descendant videos was going over the Sterile Land anticipated ambush point, as in my opinion, it's still one of the best missions as soon as you get to endgame. But essentially, we're getting Freyna's Toxic Reactor here on tech. Really a quick mission clear. That's really the main thing here. Very efficient linear. Not too many, different variables to worry about. Makes for a very efficient clear. Regarding her mobbing, you would go with something like Duration and the Toxic boost. Regarding bossing, you would go damage to Colossus and the Tech boost for the Toxic boost. Regarding Lepic and Esiemo, we do have over in the Dune base Fire Reactor on Tech. Still a little shaky depending on Esiemo because he also has 2 skills on Fusion. I would assume based on the build you're making, if you're going for the ultimate, you would want a Fusion Reactor then, no? You can confirm that for me down below, but regarding Lepic, Tech on that 4th ability. So Dune base will be perfect for him. Now we do have a strategic outpost here. We do have a couple missions here as well. Personally, I like the Vulgus Blockade. It's just a simple extermination mission. That'll run you well. Typically on Lepics, I would see that crit damage roll with that damage to Colossus, or just for more consistent damage, keep that damage to Colossus, drop off the crit damage, and do like a Tech boost or Fire boost at substat spot. Generally with Esiemo, I would say cooldown reduction, duration. Woo! And a WWW week for Blaire mains, guys. We have the Kuiper Mine over in the repository in the Sterile Land. Now here I'll give you a little quick rundown of this. Many characters can actually utilize this farm efficiently, but you'll pretty much clear the first beginning portion until you get to the objective. Once you do that, start the objective and just don't collect anything. And just mob out for that 5-minute timer. Now, typically on my Blaire at the moment, I'm running skill cooldown as well as duration. You do have other options. You can tack on some more range if you're really doing the mobbing portion. If you want to take them into bossing, you have, skill crit damage and then damage to Colossus. That's usually generally what you're doing on skill characters, that damage to Colossus as well as skill damage. Now, regarding bunny reactors this week, guys, we do have 2 options here, both on singular. Really depends on what you want to do with your farming. We do have the converter facility, which we can do a Valby outpost here, essentially. Now, the outposts give good reactor drops, so you do have this option, but you also have over in the defense line, if you want to do the Fortress Command entrance, which is a extermination mission. You do have 2 options there if you want a little more variety to your farming, as well as another, Valby outpost here as well. So you do have a couple options there if you want to switch things up a bit. Ideally, you would probably run this Valby outpost here, as this is one of the best ones to run in the game. All up to you, though. You do have a little flexibility here when farming that bunny reactor. Typically for my bunny reactor, we do an electric or singular boost, as well as that crit damage roll. So again, depends on where you're taking that build, what you're really looking to get out of your reactor. Generally, you go with your particular typing boost, in this case, the electric or singular, and then like a crit damage roll. Maybe cooldown or duration, depending on where you are in your particular build. One of those could be useful in the early leveling process. And then finally, to close this out, I do want to include something for our good old Sharen. That is another, I would like to say, old reliable floodplain over the Moonlight area of Vespers. Typically on Sharen, I particularly go with duration on my reactor because I do not have any crystals on her slot. I won't be investing into Sharen for a while, actually, guys. That's just me. I will wait until that ultimate goes. I just pumped a lot of HP into her, and she's good there. Go duration on that reactor as well as cooldown, and that's good enough for my particular outpost needs. Maybe later down the road, we'll invest into Sharen more. Then in that event, maybe you do damage to Colossus or something, make a little boss build or something, whenever we get that ultimate form. Just cooldown and duration should do you perfect. Thanks for watching. Found anything helpful? Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel as we do one of these every week. And remember to slay and conquer.